What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Fountain City Hockey Podcast, a podcast for the fans by a fan. I'm your host, Christian, and today we're going to be talking to a Columbus Cottonmouths hockey legend, Doug Mann. Tune in to find out more about Doug's childhood, his time in the minors, and also his time playing pro in Columbus. I hope you enjoy the show as much as I enjoyed the interview with Doug. Enjoy. Welcome to the show, Doug.
Hey, great to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely. Thank you for joining. I really am grateful for the opportunity to talk to a legend of Columbus like yourself. I'm going to start off with a very end-loaded question, I guess you could say.
Okay.
Who is Doug Mann?
Doug Mann, born and raised in Rexdale, Canada, Ontario. Rexdale is basically a part of Toronto. Pretty poor area. I grew up pretty poor, single mom, raising myself and my sister. To be honest with you, couldn't afford to put me in hockey like when all my other friends did. And then finally I kept nagging, and my mom found a way to start the little voyage of playing hockey and journey. And that's it. Like I said, it was a struggle. My mom was a factory worker, was out of the house at 5 a.m, never drove in her life, so she had to take a bus. And I mean, I know there's the old folklores of, people saying that they had to walk 10 miles barefoot, but my mom didn't walk barefoot, but she basically had to take a bus, in the winter months and get to work by 6 and to barely make ends meet for my mom and my sister. So it was pretty humbling, to say the least. Always knew the value of a dollar, knew to never turn my nose up to people that, I never, like, money never impressed me. When I played hockey, I had other opportunities to go make some serious money at some point in my career, and I chose, where I was going to be happy and where I was going to enjoy playing and be comfortable, and where I know where people wanted me more. But
Absolutely.
yeah, that's where the journey started for me.
You've always wanted to play hockey, but not getting the journey started a little bit later. How old were you when you actually were able to start playing hockey?
Well, we're talking about Canada, right? So everyone starts at around 4 or 5 there. So I believe I was like 7 or 8 by the time I started. To be honest with you, my mom, single mom, she really didn't, think about it too much. She put me in Cub Scouts, and then I was just nagging. All my friends were playing hockey, and finally she just gave in to my nagging, and she said, fine, Cub Scouts or hockey? I said, hockey. She did approach my dad. My parents separated when I was 2, and it was tough, So I'm not sure how much my dad helped out with my hockey or not, but I believe he did contribute a little at the beginning. But it's just one of those things I never talked to my parents about, because there's a little, I don't know, a little anger going, with the split up, my whole life and all that. I don't know.
Absolutely, I can understand that. I grew up really without a father as well, so
yeah,
mine was more into the wanting to be in the crime scene versus wanting to be an actual father, so I can understand that.
Now my dad, he was a working man. He didn't know anything. He didn't have a very good upbringing, and he from 16 years old, he was a long distance trucker, and that man was, I mean, he was in my life my whole life, and he's a good dad. It's just, but he was just never there because he was always on the road, and he didn't know anything else. I mean, he worked hard, and but the man literally didn't know anything else about trucking. He didn't know how to have a conversation about anything else but trucking, and unfortunately, he passed away a few years back. But he yeah, no, I appreciate it. He made it right the last few years. Like, man, the last 10 years, him and my stepmother and my little sister would come down and visit, and he, my kids actually knew him, and to be honest with you, I didn't even care about my upbringing and whether he was there for my big moments and all that. He, the best thing is he got to know my kids and all that good stuff. So he made a good effort to be a good father for the last 15 years. I'd say 15 years of his life. And he wasn't terrible. Like, he just wasn't there. He was always on the road, long distance truck driver. He didn't know how to do anything else.
Absolutely. Now going up playing hockey through your young childhood, at what age? Because I played baseball my whole life. That's what I mainly got into. I mean, I played a few other sports, and baseball was my big thing. And normally around the ages of 11 to 14 is when you really in baseball start knowing, hey, I'm decent at this. Maybe I have a shot at going somewhere with it. At what age would you say that like you were on the ice and you were like, hey, maybe I do have a chance to actually play and make something out of hockey, make something out of a sport?
So you're going to find this real interesting, to be honest with you, because we're so poor. Right? So let's call it like 9 or 10 in Canada, right? You play house league, and then there's a thing called in Toronto. It's called the MTHL, Metropolitan Toronto Junior Hockey League, MTHL. Anyways, there's categories. There's A, double A, and triple A. A being skilled, double A being more skilled, triple A majors being the best. And so because my mom never had a driver's license, and when you're playing house league, the arena was like a half a mile from my house, so we walked. So when I went to some of these tryouts, it's $5 a tryout. I'd always bug my mom, hey, let me go try out, and we'd take the bus to these tryouts. And I made the team, but then when the coach found out, my situation with the ride and all that, they cut me. This one coach cut me. And a couple of the players that I played house league the year before go, man, you shouldn't have cut Doug. He's a good player. And so anyway, I went to another team, and that got me on the journey with this coach, Tony DeMaria. And man, he came pick me up, games, practices. He had 2 sons. They weren't on the team. His oldest son was the assistant coach. And so anyways, I played for him for about 3-4 years. That was A. We went up to double A. And I didn't even think about like if I was good enough to play major. I just kind of stayed where this guy cared about me and drove me to games. And really, my mom couldn't afford it, right? That one summer, I might have been 11 or 12 now, 13. I go to a AAA camp and I make it. But to play AAA, it's real expensive. You go to tournament plays, you play your regular season. I mean, all the arenas are not right next door to your apartment. And so anyways, I told the coach, I said, hey, I appreciate it, but we can't afford it, whatever. And from that point on, I never paid to play hockey. I never paid for equipment. I never paid nothing from 12 or 13. So I knew I was good, but I still didn't, it was humbling because of the upbringing, just being poor and all that. I just didn't know I was a good hockey player. I just loved to play. And so when you're around, was it 15, 16, you play minor midget. And so I went on from that team, and then I signed with this Mississauga Blackhawks. And again, I said, I can't, whatever. So the coach came and picked me. I mean, he drove 45 minutes to pick me up, practices, games, everything. I mean, each way. And so I'm playing a game one time in this showcase tournament prior to that season with the Mississauga Blackhawks. And some scout comes up to me, goes, hey, you interested in playing the OHL? We're thinking about taking you in the 4th round. And I said, what? They said, yeah, we'd like to come visit you during the season, but right now we're trying to take you around 53rd overall and to the OHL, the Ontario Hockey League. Mm-hmm. And so I went home after that game, and I ran around my apartment like 1,000 times. It felt like it was just, I cannot believe that the OHL wants me to go up there and play. So anyways, they came and visit my mom. They come into our apartment. We have walls caved in, and I mean, it's just something you just seen right out of the hood. It's like, so they drafted me, and they drafted me 53rd overall. We had just traded. Sault Ste. Marie had just traded Eric Lindros to Oshawa. So now I'm coming into a team that just got all these players from a Memorial Cup team. And I believe Oshawa. I might have get this wrong, but I mean Oshawa had some good players. They were one of the top teams in the league, and they trade them all off to get Lindros, right? So I go to Sault Ste. Marie, and to be honest with you, hindsight is 2020. If I get drafted to any other team in that league, I play. I play 4 years. But if you're looking at my hockey DB, you see I played 4 games. Like Ted Nolan was our coach. I don't know if you heard of him. He was the NHL Coach of the Year with Buffalo Sabres. We had, I think, 6 or 7 NHL guys there. Adam Foote being the most notable.
Okay.
He won a Stanley Cup with
Colorado.
And but anyways, I just didn't fit in. That was the only team in my whole career, and obviously that was early in my career, but that was the only team in my whole career where I did not fit in. I was not even close. I mean, we're going on a eastern swing up towards my neck of the woods, London, Kitchener, and I had friends and family like come to each game. And as I'm getting off the bus, the coach goes, "Yeah, you're not going tonight." And then the next night would be in Kitchener. Hey, yeah, you're not going tonight. And my friends and family all come and watch me. And finally, the third night in Hamilton, I just broke down crying. It's like, my God, this is a 16-year-old. This coach says I'm playing at least 2 games on this thing, and he on this road swing, and he doesn't play me, right? So right away, I'm ruined, right? And so, anyways, they send me to that Brockville team, and I go to Brockville, and they put me with this trainer, and he was housing another player on the team, and something wasn't right on that, like with this relationship. Like it was weird. I don't want to sit there and say that I'm 100% sure, but like there was something going on. So I took off and went to Toronto, back to Toronto, and played for Brampton. But anyways, the next year, then I go back to Sault Ste. Marie for camp because, they sent me to Brockville there. They weren't too happy because I left and went to Brampton. But anyways, I go back there. I get jumped by this guy, Brian Gowdy. He ended up being a pretty tough guy, right? I get jumped by him and thing. And like, I was actually friends with him. Like him and I actually hung out the little time I was there year one. And he jumps me, and he played the whole season. He jumps me and embarrasses me, and that is the only time in my hockey career. And I can honestly say this: if anyone hears this podcast and they know me, that's the only time that I ever turtled. And so I got off the ice, and they trade me to Kingston. Well, I go to Kingston. I don't play. Whatever. I said, screw this. So then I pack up and I come back to Brampton. Anyways, so that's kind of where it started. So now I'm playing in Brampton. I went to Cole Harbour, I think, for a little bit. That was in Nova Scotia. But when I got back, I knew I was a good hockey player. Like I went to Brampton. You look at some of my numbers there with Brampton.
Oh yeah.
1 year there. And then plus I'd fight once a game. And then after my last year junior, which was with the Monarchs, Milton there, I didn't want to play hockey. And so all that summer, I'm just kind of letting loose with my buddies. Like I said, Tom Wilson's, him and I grew up together. He's training because he's getting an opportunity to go down to Florida and play.
Okay.
And I didn't want to play. My buddy, my old left winger on one of the Mississauga Blackhawks, he had a thoroughbred horses, and you can't race them in Canada. So he asked me if I wanted to go down to New Orleans in the winter and hot walk his horses. So we went there, and it was just a big party. So I'm there till about Christmas, and Tom, there's no cell phones. Tom calls my mom. My mom gets in contact with me, and Tom goes, "Hey, dummy, get down here and play hockey. I told my owners about you. I warned them about you too, and they said they would love to have you." I said, "Really? I can get paid to play hockey?" I hitched a ride home from New Orleans to Toronto with the horseshoe guy. I get to Toronto. My mom flies me on her dime. Remember she's poor to like a $800 ticket. And Tom picks me up at the Orlando airport, and that's where I began my pro career.
Okay. So going back to the beginning about, like you said, your dad wasn't really around just because he was on the road all the time. Would you say whenever you got into hockey that the coach that would drive you back and forth to games in your young childhood, would you say that was more of like a father figure at that point in time for you?
Well, he was real strict, and I remember having an attitude a couple of games, whatever, and he sat me. And I'd go crying to my mom, and she said, "Oh, you probably deserved it." I respected him. He was a yeller. He was like a no-nonsense coach. I think that's what you need more of these days.
Absolutely.
And he didn't take no crap from me. And to be honest with you, I've never been, even when I was young on those teams, I've never been the best player on the team. I've never been. There's a guy, Daner Finn, he was on that team. I've always had one or two guys in my younger years when I could score that were better than me, It's like, so I just never had that taste of being the best player, and I was okay with that because I think I added more to the game. I was physical. But yeah, as far as the father figure, I mean, this coach took me ice fishing, I tell this story now, and everyone goes, "Oh, that's weird." But I mean, it was with him and his two kids. I mean, his two boys and all that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he took me ice fishing. I would never have had that opportunity to drive a whatever a 1-ton vehicle out in the middle of a 200 foot deep lake, and play hockey while my coach is catching lake trout and smoking it and eating it. I mean, it's just those are opportunities like I would have never done.
That,
Like I said, I had a single mom I live with. She did her best to, you know, do fun things with us, and that's all. But I wouldn't have been ice fishing.
yeah. She did what she could. I mean,
Yeah,
that's what moms do.
yeah. So,
But
but
so just looking at your hockey DB, like we were talking about, you've racked up penalty minutes a lot within your career. Would you say on your style of play that you were more of an enforcer than anything else?
so let's go back to when I finally made it to Florida to meet Tom.
Mm-hmm.
I was extremely out of shape, and I lived in a rough neighborhood. I'm telling you, like we fought all the time off the ice. Like, I mean, I was in fights every weekend, like street fights, and and I boxed, and I mean, I've been in so many fights. It's like, so I was extremely out of shape, and of course, Tom was telling his coach, hey, I got a guy. He's like you've never seen before. He's tough, right? And so I come into town, and their coach is looking at me up and down, and they went up to Tom. They go, "This little guy." Like, I mean, because I'm only 5'11",
Mm-hmm.
and I had a little beef on me, not as much as these days, but I mean, I was out of shape, maybe 15 pounds, 20 pounds. But they went back to Tom and said, "This guy is the guy you're talking about." And Tom goes, "Yeah, you're not going to see anything like him." And so the first game, I didn't even sit on my team's bench. He started me. I fought. Went in the penalty box. He kept me on the ice. I fought again. Then I went to the penalty box, came out, and I fought again the third time before the period's out. So my first pro game, I never even sat on my team's bench. I beat up 3 guys, and then went to the dressing room. And Tom's apologizing to the owners, and they say, "No, no, no, we love him." Jeez. And he goes, "Will he do that every night?" And Tom goes, "Oh yeah, he loves it. He's stupid." So, but that being said, is like, so you see my numbers in junior where I scored goals, right? So now I'm
Absolutely.
coming, and now I'm in a different role. The fans loved it. I'm going, Tom. So all I got to do is fight, and I get paid a little bit of money, and I go, the fans love it. And so, anyways, because I'm playing in Florida, they don't even know what icing is, what anything about hockey is. They just love the fighters. So as soon as I come out of the rink that day, I mean, I have people waiting for me, like want my autograph. I'm going, this is pretty cool. And so I kind of developed into that, where when I was on the ice, I just went out and hit, and I fought. But in the playoffs, when the fighting thing, I got some big goals. I got a big goal in Florida, and I got a big goal with the Cosmos in the playoffs. And if you look at one of my playoffs, I think I had 2 or 3 goals, which you look at my regular season, I might have had 2 or 3 goals or 4 or 5 goals in 80 games. But I mean, in the playoffs, I mean, I still had the scoring ability from junior, but in the regular season, I knew my role. And every our 1997 with the Cosmos, everybody has to have a role if you want to win a championship. I can't. They didn't need me to score goals. We had 4 or 5 guys that were going to score on that team, right? They needed
Absolutely.
me to just be the spark and be a little energy, and maybe do a little protecting, But to say I was an enforcer, no, because I'm 5'11", right? You got
Mm-hmm.
guys that are 6'4", 5 that can't even skate, that sit on the bench. Um,
Absolutely.
and by all means, I wasn't no swift skater or anything, but I did get somewhat of a regular shift. There would be games where I would be the 10th forward and I'd be used sparingly. Typically, I would never just get one shift a game,
Yeah.
to go out and fight. And nor did I ever have a coach tell me to go fight. Whenever he put me on, I knew the situation, and I just loved to do it.
Absolutely. Now, so going back before you went pro, your second time in Brampton, 92 to 93, 36 games,
Uh-huh.
12 goals, 30 total overall points,
Mm-hmm.
173 penalty minutes.
Right. So I didn't. I didn't get. So there's a lot. You'll see a lot of other guys that interview over the next little bit, and you'll see their penalty minutes. Like, you'll see Tom in the 300s or in Jerome in the 300s, and I mean, by all means, are tough. But I was it's called true minutes. I just got fighting majors. Like, I didn't go and mouth off to the rest and get 10-minute misconducts. I didn't do a lot of tripping. I didn't do, you know, cheap. You know what I'm saying? It's like, and I'm not calling those guys that. I'm just saying I had true minutes. So my minutes were all 5-minute majors. Of course, there's a couple of tripping or whatever, but we're trying to stop a guy from scoring or something. But for the most part, when you see that, those stats are even more amazing because they're 5-minute majors. Like I was always one or two in the league in fighting majors,
Okay.
in most of the leagues I played in.
Yeah, because I mean, you could definitely tell. I mean, whenever, like you said, whenever you got drafted and then working up through your juniors, I mean, you can tell where you went from the 36 games with only 30 points, but 173 penalty minutes. But then the very next year, 21 games and you scored 21 goals.
Right.
So you could definitely tell how your game differed from playing up in juniors to, like you said, turning pro and knowing your role.
Right. And exactly. I promise you, I could have sat there. I mean, and changed my role, and maybe not fought as much. And I promise you, I would have tripled my goals. I would have scored. And I was never that guy that was going to go down the ice end to end and deke out everyone. But I just had a knack in front of the net, and getting garbage goals are called dirty goals. So I for the most, that's how I scored the game-winning goal in the both playoffs winners that I was telling you about earlier. Has rebound in front of the net, boxed out the D-man, caught the rebound, and put it in the net.
Slammer home.
Yeah.
I mean, but to me, that's just hard-nosed hockey. I mean, that's what hockey's supposed to be. Not every shot that you're going to have is going to go in the net.
Right.
Sometimes you need to shoot for the rebound, get the grind going.
Right. And I mean, there'd be games where my back would be black and blue, the back of my legs, because you don't have padding, so the goalie would be beating the crap out of you behind your legs. You be getting cross checked by the D man. I mean, those man. After a game, when you're in pain, it's a good feeling. Like it's just man, we just won that game, and I feel like I just been through a meat grinder. It's just gratifying. I'm serious. I know that sounds sick, but I mean, I just used to love being in pain after a game.
And that's one thing I will say that's different from hockey than any other sport. You go out there, and I mean, we'll just take your time from being pro. You'll go out there, fight 2-3 times a night, turn around, come back. You've laid no telling how many monster checks on people from just doing heavy forechecks.
Right.
And come back the very next day like nothing's wrong, but your whole entire body is black and blue from the night before.
Well, there's be times, like especially on the roads, I'd fight. I remember fighting twice on the road in 2 games, then coming home and playing Macon and playing this one idiot I couldn't stand him, Phil Volk. And my left hand, which is my bread and butter when it comes to punching, was like jello. Like the swelling was so bad. Like if I hit you, it would feel like you got hit with a pillow. And I told him not to do anything stupid, that I'd fight him Tuesday. I normally don't coordinate that, but I was just letting him know, hey, look you do something stupid and I'm going to 2-hand you with my stick and instead of fight you. Okay. And so sure enough, he hits this guy, Derek Grimman, from behind. And then he goes behind the net and I just 2-hand him right where the padding is in between the elbow pads and the gloves. And He turns around and jumps me. Well, he grabs my left hand. I couldn't throw it anyways. It was like almost broken. And I catch him with a right and I cut him open. And, so anyways, but he jumped me, so I'm still getting my marbles going, but he's bleeding and all that. And anyways, the refs get in there, and then he comes over the top and shatters my nose like with the biggest cheap shot ever. So I mean, that's just the type of things that we had to deal with,
And I bet you were back out on the ice the very next day too.
Well, I got suspended for a few games because the ref said that he saw the cheap shot, and then he called me the extra penalty, and I said some explicits to him, so I got suspended for like 7 games.
So you got to get you a little bit of a break and come back.
Yeah, that's for sure. So it's weird because that guy wasn't a respected fighter or whatever, Like if I would have went up to a guy like the likes of Mike DeGurse or something and say, hey, look I fight you every game, buddy. Don't do anything stupid. Like, I mean, if you do it, I'm gonna have to do something with my stick or something. You know, he'd respect that. Because he knows he's been there fighting in other games. I wasn't the only guy he fought, and
Mm-hmm.
so if his hand's bruised or broken, like, I mean, you chill out a little, you know.
Exactly.
So
So from the time I started watching and actually getting into hockey, of course, I was like everybody else in the South. At first, I liked it because, fighting big hits. But as I kept going and learning the actual game of hockey, I began to love it even more and understanding there's a reason behind what happens.
right.
How much would you say that I don't want to say it's not choreographed, but how much talking would you really say of, hey, like, we got to go, or pregame whenever you're out there for warm-ups of, hey, we're going first puck drop? How much of that would you say happened back in your time versus just big hit, drop the gloves, or a scrum in front of the net or a scrum on the boards and people go? What do you think is the difference in how it is then and now?
It was a mixture, to be honest with you, and I don't fault the guys for doing it today, but I don't like the choreographed, like just where you sit there and you high five each other before the fight and you back up, you know. I don't mind you dropping the gloves, taking off your helmets, and getting to it if there's a purpose for that thing. But all this like dancing and high fiving each other, and again, I'm not because you know what, I got guys that I still talk to on Facebook that are still playing, and it's like, you know, they do them and all that. It's just what wasn't my style. So as far as being planned, I'll give you an example. Like a lot of mine were, you know, in front of the net, or like Mike DeGurst comes out, right? And there's a little scrum. I'm like, he knows him and I are fighting. Like before the game, he knows coming to the rink that he's probably going to fight me, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of, I guess it's kind of choreographed, but it doesn't happen until something stupid happens.
Yeah.
So I'll give you an example in the finals against Wichita when we won the first Cottonmouth Championship. Game 1 against Wichita, I fight two guys and I beat them up pretty good, and I'm running around like a total idiot, just I'm getting it out that, you know, these guys aren't going to come in and bully us because they had a pretty tough team.
Mm-hmm.
But one of their fighters was sitting in the stands on game 1. Right? So game 2, I'm not a starter, right? I don't start the games. So the coach comes in and says, "All right, starting lineup, so and so, Dougie, you're on the left, or you're on the right side, right?" So then we come out at the beginning of the game, and then they're announcing Wichita's starting lineup, right? And of course, they put this Curtis Voth on the left wing, which lines up against me, right?
Yep.
So during the national anthem, you know, I always say my prayers, you know, for safety for both teams, and like, you know, no serious injuries, and you know, every game I would say my prayers to the big guy, and you know. So after that, I'm like, okay, like soon as obviously we're going as soon as this puck drops, and it's on video, it's on our championship video. It's so as soon as the puck drops, right when the national anthem, he's looking at me, and I just nodded to him, so we didn't even have to talk to each other.
Yeah,
And
I mean, you kind of knew whenever coach came in and said your name is starting, you were like, yeah, and I probably know what's gonna happen.
Well, I was running around like an idiot the game before, right? I beat up two guys. You know, I was at home. I'm fired up, and so he was doing his job, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And I mean, I think it would have been real cowardice of me to turn him down. I think I was acting like a fool. I need to at least step up to the plate here, and we had a good tilt. It was like I didn't win, I didn't lose, but it was like, I mean, there's just bombs. I don't think we missed each other's face. So
those are always the fun ones to watch too, from a fan's perspective.
Yeah, so it was pretty good.
So down in the South, talking about how when you went to Lakeland, the fans loved it and all that. I believe in which, I mean, it's great, the game changing, but at the same time, down here in the South, you see the fans get more excited for the fights and the big scrums that could turn into fights. And then, of course, they get upset when one doesn't happen or the refs jump in. How do you think we could change fans' perspective of, hey, learn the game and learn why things happen and the way they do and still be able to draw? Because I remember, like I said, back when I got into it and started learning the game was right at the downfall of the Cottonmouths.
Right.
And the whole aspect changed from rough and tough, hit, which you would have some games like that, to more of growing into the speed and the skill of players. Whereas in that low of a level of minor hockey, people come to watch because of the fight in his. How do you think, in your mind, that we can change the perspective of an outlook for fans to, hey, enjoy the game, learn the game, and you'll have more fun?
Well, hockey's man. So I'm old school, so this is gonna probably not sound good to a lot of people. They just ruined the game. Like, I mean, you can't even touch someone's stick without getting an obstruction call. And I'm definitely old school, where there's no one in my lifetime that could ever change my mind that fighting in hockey keeps the game safe. And people don't understand when I say that, but there's a lot more stick infractions now, slashing, high sticking, vicious. Back in our Cottonmouth days, if you high sticked one of our guys, you'd have 5 guys that you'd have to answer to. So if you're playing against a tough team, you're going to behave, right? So your goal scorers aren't getting ran at, right? You're not getting cheap shots. Like, look at Sidney Crosby. He went for a stretch there where he was getting hurt because he didn't have anyone to protect him. Gretzky, you rubbed up against Gretzky, and you have 2 or 3 guys coming out. The main ones were Dave Semenko, and then a couple of years later was Marty McSorley.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but you didn't see Gretzky limping off because he was protected, right? And so even some of the stars today, are getting ran. Like, I'm a Toronto fan, so Austin Matthews gets ran all the time. It's like, no, if you had a tough team, to the game today, I do think it's actually faster because like I said, you can't even touch anyone. Back in my era, you could clutch and grab and hold someone up from putting your defenseman 5 foot into the boards, But now you can't even touch it. It's obstruction or whatever they're called. So I do think they're more athletic today, if you're my opinion, a little faster. Maybe that's just because I'm years out, and when I go to the game, any hockey looks fast to me now. But I don't know. It's just I don't like where the game's going. I really don't.
It's
They're
definitely
trying to get fighting out of hockey, so there's going to be more serious injuries coming. And I just there's hitting from behind. I mean, very rarely do people get hit behind or from behind on our team because we had such a tough team. But now, I saw every playoff game, I'm seeing guys get hit from behind. So they need to bring back in hockey and stop blaming all the. Man, I hope this doesn't become controversial. I'm a firm believer that this mental health that's going on from that they're claiming hockey fights are making people take their lives and all that. I just don't buy it. I've had some people call me and want me to talk about fighting in hockey. And I just think if the leagues would, I think it's more of how you handle it when you retire from hockey, right? I think people make bad decisions with their monies. They turn to drugs and alcohol, and some of these players are making millions and go broke, and then that's where it hits rock bottom for it. I don't think the punches to the head makes anyone violent towards themselves or whatever, but that's just my opinion. And I apologize to anyone if it thing. Of course, I've been in probably more fights than the average hockey guy, and I struggled from when I retired. That was a tough transition, but at no point did I think my head, was not good where I wanted to hurt myself or anything. Going back to what you're saying, it's just that's just going back on what you were saying about the game changing. They're taking fighting out of it because they're blaming it all on that. And it's no, all of us signed up and we knew what we're getting ourselves into. And I have no regrets. I can barely walk now, by the way. I got metal plates in my hands. I got to take a handful of pills to get out of bed in the morning. I mean, you know what I'm saying? But I have no regrets.
Absolutely. A quick story in because we are coming here to the end. So a couple more questions.
No problem.
I've heard stories of you and Tommy Wilson hanging out together, maybe having few too many adult beverages, and the knuckles come out. Can you tell maybe a quick story of something about that?
So Tommy and I, we're known. We've grown up the last 2 years at least. I think we got into it a couple of years ago in my backyard. But yeah, people for instance, him and I fought before my wedding. all our buddies from Rexdale, we're in Toronto, and they're saying, I think Tommy can beat you. And half my guys said, no, Tom's never beat Doug before, blah, blah, blah. And so we went outside, and my buddies were circling just like a schoolyard, and we said, all right, first one to hit the ground, just before the night before my wedding, the first one to hit the ground, we go in and we buy each other a beer, right? So we go out and just went toe to toe, just hitting each other's faces. Tom's nose was on the side of his face. I have a little Steiner. By the way, he hit the ground first. So we get up. I have to tie my T-shirt I had on because he ripped it. And so we go in, but that's probably one. I've probably fought Tom more than I fought my most guy in playing hockey.
And that's just, I mean, like you said, y'all grew up in diapers. I mean,
yeah.
My best friend, we got in a couple of tussles, but I mean, that's part of it. I mean, when you're friends, you get in tussles and just have fun with it.
Like one time we're at an establishment a lot of times if you see Doug Mann and Tom Wilson together, we are having adult beverages. So we're at Soho's here one time, and we're sitting in a booth, and him and I just it's like maybe a Tuesday or something we got together, like just idiots. And all of a sudden we just start punching each other in the face, and there's people at the bar and the owner was standing right there, and he goes, hey, there's a fight over there, right? And the owner just looks at him and goes, that's just Doug and Tom. They'll be hugging each other, buying each other beer in 2 seconds. And sure enough, without us even knowing that story, we're hey, get this guy a beer. So yeah, so we're known for that. But we did, like, I told him, I said, look at, because he's still in good shape, and he's saying, I think I can get you now. I go, not a chance. I'll find a way to beat you, boy. And so, but I'm afraid he is right. He probably whipped my butt.
All right, now one of the last questions. Just about every year since you've retired, you've always been asked to come back to do the Legends game on Legends weekend.
Yeah.
My question is, after that game, you haven't put on a pair of skates since the game before. You get out there, skate around, you get home. What's it like waking up the next morning?
It feels like I had a 15-round boxing match. You know what? This year I tried to get out of it. I went to Houston to get some treatment on my brain. Nothing's wrong with me. It's just a guy that I played against. I actually fought him a few times. Derek Harper played for Memphis. He has these clinics and these treatments, and they trigger all the black spots in your brain from all the concussions.
Okay.
So I've been going out there, and I'm supposed to get stem cell, but when I got out there, I realized like you only could do one treatment at a time, so stem cells come in later. And so I get back on the Friday. So Saturday morning, they're all down there skating. I wasn't going to play. I already told Jerome I wasn't going to play, but he got me a jersey and all that. I said it's going to be a game time decision. Either way, they could have auctioned my jersey off, right? So I go down there, and all the guys are there, and I walk in the dressing room. I take all the abuse, and they said, "You're effing playing." I said, "What? I don't even know where my stuff is." And so my son was with me, Blade, my youngest, and he goes, "Dad, yeah, I know where your stuff is." And so I go, "Oh my God, I almost got out of it," because every year I say I'm not going to play, and then I play, and it's like, then I get out there and have a great time. I mean, it's painful. Especially when I watch it on tape, I go, "Am I that slow?" It's like, Jesus. But no, it's a lot of fun, man. I enjoy the fans. It's just awesome. It's like, I got to give a little shout out to Chris Speck here. He says he's my number one fan. So he said it'd be cool on the podcast if I mention him. But he is a dedicated fan, and he wore my championship jersey during the Legends weekend, and so he's been a dedicated Cottonmouth fan since he was a young kid. So that's his little 2 minutes of fame I gave him there. No, so every time I go down, like I said, it's just awesome to see all the fans, and it just brings back a lot of memories, because I'm not gonna lie to you, it was the best time of my life besides having my kids.
I was about to say, you got to admit,
married,
so and out on the ice, there's nothing like it.
Yeah, and you feel like you're going fast and all that, and you're feeling like $1 million, $1 million, and then the next day you watch it on tape,
or the next day you try to get out of bed, and your body says, yeah, you should have had that fun, but you wouldn't take it back for nothing, though, I bet.
Yep. But yeah, life's good now. I've been married a long time. Been with my wife since 1998, and two boys. One's going to college to play golf, and the other one plays on the high school team. Golfer. He was a late bloomer in golf, but I mean, he's getting to be a decent. Where I'm not even like I'd be very surprised if he didn't maybe next year start getting offers for play some college golf. So life's good. Proud dad, and you know maybe in the next 5 years I might end up in Florida, just like all the old Canadians.
Heck yeah. So I like to end every podcast with a couple of questions from the fans. Posted a thing on the Columbus River Dragons fan page talking about me having an interview with you.
Okay.
John Sabaski asked, one, how do you train to be an enforcer? Which we've already really talked about. You weren't really an enforcer. You just knew your role. How did you train during your peak years on knowing your role and being able to do your role to the best of your ability? And then his second thing is how much trash talking or chirping is there really in hockey?
So as far as the training, to be honest with you, I didn't train fighting. I just fought all the time. Like, I mean, my off seasons when I went back home to Canada, it's like I'm either fighting Tom Wilson or some of my friends. That's a Monday morning for us, like just having fun, or we're sending one my wife when she first went to Canada and saw my group of guys. Like, there's 20 of us that we've all still keep in touch for over 40 years, and she's like, we used to send our like scrawniest guy to the end of the bars and start mouthing off to a guy, and then we'd go up there and say, "Hey, you're picking on my friend, you pick on me." Right. And so my wife said the closest thing, Doug, I've never seen anything so realistic to you guys and Good Will Hunting, the movie. He says, you guys are just idiots. Like, I mean, it's so as far as the training, I just did it all the time. Like, I mean, and it's like, one thing I did do is try to route my punches. I did train that. So when I'm fighting a guy that's throwing kind of a windmill thing, those are the easiest guys to punch. Takes so long to get to hit someone. So I did practice always punching straight. So it hit the face before they hit with me with the windmill. I did practice that. Um, you know, I kind of was, I said I wasn't the enforcer, but I mean, everyone expected me to fight, and I went out there and did that job, and it was because I loved it. So that was easy for me. What was the last question on that?
The last one was how much trash talk or chirping is there really in hockey?
So the guys I respected and I fought all the time, like Mike DeGuris, zero trash talking. Guys like the Phil Volk that I hated and didn't respect, there's no words I didn't use against him. I mean, it was insane. A lot of guys would want to trash talk you, like especially in the playoffs, and try to get you to drop your gloves, and they'd skate away. But I wasn't stupid. It was like I said, buddy, I just fought 30 times in the regular season. I said, I'll drop the gloves, So I wasn't much of a chirper, unless I didn't respect you. If I didn't respect you, then like for instance, in the Canadian Hockey League, the junior, kid got suspended for saying the P word. Like, I mean, we would have been suspended forever.
Now my question to that is, in which I already probably know the answer. Would you say there's more chirping and trash talking now in the game than before it changed?
There's no accountability. I mean, there's no guys that's going to come off the bench, and maybe one or two dinosaurs that are still left. I know that Schmidt's still playing, Amesbury. Those guys. If you're playing against them, they're going to hold you accountable. Yeah. But
I will say it was good seeing the couple of times that I seen him and like all the highlights that rookie from the New York Rangers, what was his name, Rempe?
Yeah, I saw he was hanging out with old Rempe. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I seen he came in, so I mean, maybe we can get a couple of guys like him, because I will say, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, I believe people tuned into New York Rangers games just to see him.
Yeah, and it was fun to watch, and the kid could actually play too. He just got to get smarter, like on utilizing his size, because he ate a few punches on some of those fights, and it's just unnecessary with his size. Like, I fought a couple of guys that were that big, and it's just what am I gonna do? Like, if he just strings me out,
Exactly.
There's nothing you can do. It's like Mitch Fritz, who played here back in the East Coast days. It's like, man, you can't fight a guy that big if he's smart.
Yeah.
And so Rempe, he's young. I think he's 18, isn't he?
18 or 19. I mean, he's really young. I mean, he came straight out of like high school juniors straight
If
into the league.
if he was smart and just strung guys out, he would never lose. It would be crazy.
Because I know he's like what 6'5" or 6'6".
Yeah, like maybe 6'7". I mean, he's huge.
He's big.
Yeah, like even Reeves off Toronto said that's a big human being. So it's hard to fight guys like that just because you're not physically able to reach his face if he's strong and holds you out.
Absolutely.
So,
But hey, Doug, our time is coming to an end. I want to say thank you. I really appreciate it. It was truly an honor from a fan getting to know more about you and getting to just sit here and talk to you and pick your brain about hockey and
yeah,
everything that we
I
talked
enjoyed
about.
it, Christian. Man, I still get people going on Messenger and wanting to talk hockey. Man, I'm never against talking about hockey, but it's in my blood. I love it. I love Columbus, and I love all you fans. And man, I already can't wait till next year Legends game. See all you guys. Life gets in the way for me getting down to too many games, but I think I'm going to pop down to a few this next season. So hopefully I see you down there.
Absolutely. Yes, sir. Like I said, I appreciate it, and hopefully we can do this again soon.
Yes, sir. Anytime.